I talked to you about as well off camera. This probably is a great way to prepare you for your college application. You're going to go in and you're going to leave us and probably go out of state to a warm climate, and you're going to Wayne State. So how will you take this experience you have into your college career, into your adulthood, and your careers, whatever you choose to be? We heard an anecdote from Christine about a nurse that's always the go-to person in terms of cultural issues on the floor. So how do you think this will affect you in your adult life, and how will you use the experience?
Well, I've already seen a pattern for myself in high school because of Generation of Promise. Like, I became more passionate about community service and human rights. So I stood up, and I am president of the Interact Club and Amnesty International. And I think that will continue on for me in college and in my adult life, like continuing to take leadership positions and being more involved.
How about you, Paul?
Well, as of right now in my school, there isn't a great big deal of diversity. So really I've been trying to implement more themes that could bring about diversity. But in terms of going out to college, I feel as if colleges want to prepare for the new generation because they know that we are the future. So if they see that there's someone who puts forth the effort and time to make a change, then they'll be more focused in on them because they want to bring that same type of mindset to their community and campus.
So what do we do about the people who are still using the N-word or the F-word at your school? I mean, how do we attack that?
I would say education is the big issue. People don't understand what they're saying or the ramifications of their actions. So what I think we need to have is some sort of class, or not even a class, just like teachers talking about it and educating their students about different types of people.
Going back to what you said, Paul, about implementing some diversity themes within the school, tell us an example of what you're doing that might be.
Well, as a sophomore last year, I was a part of the Michigan Roundtable, where they held a conference of many different high schools, and we sat down and discussed similar issues that we do in the Generation of Promise. And I've made it clear to my director of admissions, who also offered me the job application for the Generation of Promise. He offered me the same thing for the Roundtable. So I've been really kind of bugging him, making sure that he gets the same thing going for the sophomores this year, and just carry on the tradition, because that really does make a difference in a person's life, and it affects others around them.
That's great. So if there's one thing that you would want to be able to tell maybe a potential participant in Generation of Promise that could be watching, what would be the one thing you would want to say?
Well, I think that people need exposure to new things, because that's people, when they have a fear of trying something new, then they tend to act out on it. But if they're exposed to it, they can either choose to embrace it or at least just understand that's one person's point of view and they can accept it, but they don't necessarily have to partake it in their own lives. So I think that's really the main thing, exposure to what you'll be given. So
I would say that it's truly a life-changing experience. When I went into the program, I was like, just another thing for my college apps. But when I came out of the program, I was changed, and it's very beneficial.
Okay, now let's take the same question. Now there's maybe an adult out there that is watching that isn't really that comfortable with people that don't look like them or act like them or have the same background as them. What's the lesson that you might tell somebody who is maybe 20 years older than you in terms of what you've learned about interacting with different cultures?
Well, seeing that they have such a disposition with one another, they must have experienced something that didn't really sit them in a good position. So I'd say that they should just continue to give people a chance to provide them with the vibrance that they can bring and not just shoot them down because of past experiences. Just give them a chance, and sooner or later they'll come across someone who shows them that this is something good, and more good can only come out of it.
So on that note, Paul, can you give us an icebreaker? How do you start a conversation with somebody?
Name tags. No.
That's a good point.
You know, to be honest, that's always a gray area for me.
And everybody says the same thing, so
Yeah.
there's no right answer on this.
You know, I would really just introduce myself to them and just ask them what their name is and see if we can build upon that, any common like interest.
Thank you. And you, Diana, what do you think?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so let's say there's somebody who's 10, 20 years older than you, doesn't do really well in being able to appreciate or understand other people that don't look or come from a similar background. What's the one thing you could say to somebody that?
I would say that I appreciate how difficult it is for them to have an open mind because this is how they were brought up, and it's very hard to change values that are ingrained in your system. So I would say I appreciate that, but they should keep an open mind. Like, that's the most important thing, is to just, even if you're uncomfortable with something, like I was uncomfortable in the beginning of Generation Promise, just broaden your horizons.